of tomorrow, episode 14. There will be brood, but the way this turned out, it should be called There Will Be Death, because they basically killed everybody. So, in this episode, it starts where the last one ends, where Constantine, he beat himself up, and then he took the blood potion, and then he turned into the evil version of himself. Zari comes back, because she was supposed to get him some soup, and then he's all like, oh, everything's perfectly fine, love. And then, like the legends find out that, Bishop, like he stole Mick's comm. And then, he spoke to Constantine, and then they all show up at his house. And they're just like, Zari, don't trust him because he's working with Bishop. And then they're just like, oh, John, tell us what's happening. And he's like, what's happening is like, I'm not a bloody legend. It's like, I walk my own path and you bunch of losers, let's get out of my face. And then, he got into an argument with them. And it was really like a decoy trick because he was actually on the ship with Bishop the whole time. So they tricked the legends into getting off the ship. And then once all of them were off the ship, then Bishop and John, they got on the ship. And then they set a course to try to find out where the Fountain of Imperium is. John came up with the idea. He was like, since he can't, like, he said, since the place and time where he was, the fountain had already disappeared and deemed him unworthy, they're trying to find another place in history where the fountain exists. So then they pick a spot in like 1925 in Texas. So they fly down to 1925 in Texas, and then coincidentally, out of all the legends that went to Constantine's house to try to talk to him, Astor and Spooner were the only two who didn't go. And Astor and Spooner, they stayed on the wave ride. They stayed on the ship. They saw John and they saw Bishop, and they're just like, oh my God, like what's going on? Why are the two of them working together? And then they decide to follow them to find out what happened to the legends, because they know like Constantine's trying to get the Fountain of Imperium. When they get off the ship, they realize that they're in 1925 Texas, and Spooner's just looking around because she's just like, yo, this, like, all this looks familiar. Not just because she's from Texas, but then a man ends up getting hurt, and then a woman comes over and like heals him because this woman was said to be a healer. And then Spooner's just like, holy ish. So she told Ash, she's like, yo, that's my mom. And when she said that, I was like, yo, how old is Spooner? Because if her mom, if this is 1925, I'm like, how old is Spooner? I'm like, question, like at that point I was like, okay, there need to be questions, because I want to know why. I want, like, Spooner got to be like 60 like 60, 70 years old. So then she ends up like talking to the woman who she says is her mom, and then she finds out that is indeed in fact her mom. And then she also finds out that she was taken from that particular time period. She finds out that she actually is from 1925, because remember, like when she said that the aliens, quote unquote, like wiped her memory. So then she's just like, like the aliens wiped my memory and they sent me off to the future, which is why when I was in the future I could never find my mom, because my mom and I actually are from 1925. So they end up getting cozy with the mom and having a conversation with the mom. This bully, we'll just call him like the hometown bully. There was this guy who was trying to buy up land and trying to buy up property. One of the properties that he couldn't get his hands on was Spooner's mom's property, and he was basically trying to like strong arm her into giving up, into giving up the land. Obviously, her mom didn't want to give up the property, so he was just like, "Well, go on then." He's like, "I'm gonna get your deed one way or the other." And then like Spooner steps in, she's like, "Back away from my mom, you son of a bitch," and the guy backs off, and then like him and his boys run away. So Spooner and Astra, they go down to the house. They end up talking to her mom even more. Spooner gets to know her a little bit better. She gets into more conversation with her mom. Meanwhile, Constantine and Bishop, they find the Fountain of Imperium. And they find out that the fountain, it actually isn't like a fountain, like full of water and like pouring water. It's called the fountain, but they basically find out that the fountain is alien. And it's in the forest surrounded by all these mushrooms, because mushrooms are also alien, apparently. But again, John's not worthy to receive the fountain, so they now have to find someone else who is. And like Bishop said, he just said, we need a sample of someone who is worthy so I can come up with a potion to trick the fountain into thinking it's you. And then that's when we bump into young Spooner in the forest. John ends up seeing like a young Spooner. He walks up to her, does a little magic, and then he's just like, oh, like tell me more about you and your mother, dearie. And then like young Spooner ends up bringing him back to the house. So then now, and then adult Spooner, she has no, like, Spooner has never watched any time travel movie or TV show ever in life, because Spooner broke every rule. Because even Astra was just like, oh, there's a chance that you could run into your younger self, and then she was just like, so what? And then Astra was like, she's like, that could disrupt like every time law, like in every movie, like imaginable. But Spooner didn't care. John walked in with young Spooner. Spooner met herself. She met the younger version of herself. John saw Astra and Spooner, and then he was just like, hey, isn't this bloody interesting? And then all of them sit down at the kitchen table, and they end up having dinner and end up having a conversation. And then while they were having their conversation, Astra was just like, so what are you planning, John? And then he was just like, oh, don't worry about it, love. But then he was just like, you know what, I don't have time for this bollocks. And then like he snapped his fingers. He put young Spooner's mom and Astra to sleep. And then he had a conversation with adult Spooner straight up, and he was just like, let's just cut to the chase, dearie. He's like, I'll show you the fate for your mother. And then he grabbed her hand and showed her future between her and her mom. He actually showed her past of how she came to be and how she got into the situation. This was like low-key a Spooner backstory episode, because we find out how she ended up in the future, because those same guys that were trying to get her mother's land, they're supposed to, and he told her, he was like, oh, those same guys that want your mother's land, he's like, they come back tonight and they kill your mother. You run into the forest. And then because her blood is like pure, she activated the fountain of Imperium. And when the fountain, like rose from the forest, the fountain took young Spooner, sucked her up, and sent her off to the future. It sent her to Texas in the future to protect her from the guys from killing her. And that's why, and then like they even wiped her memory clean, which is why, like they said, she couldn't remember her mom, and that's why she couldn't really find her mom, because her mom had died in 1925, and Spooner got sent to like 2020 or like 2021 or something like that. Well, I forgot the year she got sent to. So then, then after that, then John woke everybody up and he disappeared, and then Astra was just like, what the hell happened? Come to find out that Spooner, because Spooner now knows the truth about her mom, she decided to stay behind and help protect her mom for when these guys come to kill her. She's like, she's going to be ready to save her mom. And then, but in exchange for that information, she ended up giving John exactly what he wanted, because John was just like, oh, you can stay here and save your mother, and then you can grow up with your mother the way you always wanted to. He's like, I just need one thing from you. She gave him her blood, which pissed Astra off, because she was just like, you just gave him the one thing we were trying to prevent him from getting his hands on. And then Spooner was just like, yeah, but it's worth it to save my mom. And then she was like, if it was your mom, you do the same thing. And then Astra felt bad. And then she was just like, she's like, yeah, but we got to find the legends and everything. And she was just like, then Spooner was like, no, I'm staying here with my mother. So then Bishop ended up coming up with a formula. I guess that was supposed to, like, along with like Spooner's blood and the Fountain of Imperium sample, it was supposed to boost Constantine's like power to give him his power back truly. So then, so he makes the formula. The two of them go down to the forest, and they go to the forest. He uses Spooner's blood to activate the mushrooms. And when he activated the mushrooms and all the mushrooms lit up and the big Fountain of Imperium mushroom came out of the ground, because mushrooms are alien apparently, and the whole thing was like lit up and it was like beautiful and like glamorous, I legit sat there like, any of you, if you've ever played Pokemon Sword and Shield, there's a town in that, like there's like a forest in that game that looks exactly like where Constantine was standing. It was scary about how that looked. So then, so like he activates it, but then he's just like, oh, he's like, it's time to use the blood, like use the child's blood, so I can regain my power, so like I said, the things out. So now, like it's nightfall, the bullies, the prospectors, whatever, they show up at Spooner's mom's house to kill her mom, to get the deed to her land and her property. Astra takes young Spooner because, and this is another part where Spooner had broken like all the time laws. She ended up telling, because like when the guys showed up, Spooner was like, her mom was like, oh, I'll just go outside and talk to them. And then Spooner was like, you can't go outside because they don't want to talk. It's a setup. They're actually trying to kill you. And then the mom was like, well, why do you care so much? And then Spooner's like, because I'm your daughter. And I'm like, wow. Like just like that. And then she explained to her how like she's from the future, and then she's like, today like those guys are supposed to kill you, and then I get sent off to the aliens, send me an alien mushroom, sends me to the future, and then I grow up without you and I become like bitter and everything. But then her mom was just like, yeah, but everything, she said, but all those reasons that sent you to the future, those same things brought you back to me in this moment, and her mom believed her. Like, she ended up believing her. She accepted the fact that that was her daughter from the future. And then, when Astra said, she was like, if you stay here, or if you save your mom, and if young you doesn't get sucked up by the fountain of Imperium, then you never become this person. You never meet the legends. You never make it to like 2021. And then she was just like, I don't care. But then her mom told her, she was just like, no. She was like, if that's what's supposed to happen, she said, then you need to go and let it happen. Because she said that this is the person who you are. And she's like, you're strong, you're powerful, like you're adventurous, you're a time traveler, for Christ's sake. She's like, I don't want you to give any of that up. And then she's like, oh, but I don't want to be without you. And she was like, I'm standing right here. She was like, maybe young you grew up without me, but adult you is standing right here, and I'm with you right here. So they can, from a time travel standpoint, they can save her mom, and Spooner can still go off into the future and just not know what happened to her mom. And that's exactly what happened. So Astra grabbed young Spooner and took her to the forest to try to take her to the Fountain of Imperium. And then meanwhile, like, adult Spooner and her mom, they tried to fight off like the prospectors. So when the prospectors show up, Spooner's there. And then because the thing about it is, because they use Spooner's blood to activate the Fountain of Imperium, Spooner is now connected to the fountain, which is why she can hear alien thoughts and why she can talk to aliens. And then something new happened, because when the prospector bully, pulled out his guns and they tried to shoot her mom, try to force her to sign over the deed, Spooner's hand started glowing, and it activated like some new power with her, to where she emotionally made the guy that was trying to take her mom's land feel all the anger and the hurt and the pain. It was a non-lethal magic thing where she just overwhelmed him emotionally, and then her hands started glowing, then everybody got scared and they ran off. So Spooner actually, because her mom's whole thing was like, she didn't want violence, she wasn't a violent person, Spooner managed to save her mother's property and do it in a non-violent way that still honored her mom, which I find very funny, because Spooner herself is always like shooting aliens, and she's the first one to pull out the guns. But then John had used the serum that Bishop came up with to link him to the fountain as well, to trick the fountain into thinking he's also Spooner, because he took it from Bishop, and then he took the injection. Bishop was supposed to take the injection as well so he can have some of the power, but then Constantine was like, no, you think I'm going to let you have it all, mate? He was like, no, it's going to belong to me. And then John took the syringe and he shoved it in his arm. And then Astra and young Spooner, the two of them showed up. And then when the two of them showed up, like young Spooner, she ran around the corner, and then John had blasted Astra and knocked Astra out. And then all of a sudden, when John turned around, he saw young Spooner being sucked up by the Fountain of Imperium. It snatched her up and it sent her off into the future. So history is now once again on track. But then John ended up, getting weak, and then he ended up passing out. And then Bishop was just like, yeah, I knew you'd try to steal the serum from me, which is why I laced the serum with poison. And then Constantine was like, why would you do that? Why would you lace it with poison? Because since John injected himself, with the serum that had Spooner's blood in it, John is also connected to the Fountain of Imperium. And Bishop's whole thing was, he wanted to kill the Fountain of Imperium, because he said that he's been trying to redo the world, he's been trying to reshape the world, but he's never been able to succeed, because he said that the Fountain of Imperium and mushrooms have been protecting Earth for centuries and centuries and generations. And he said that he can't destroy the Earth and rebuild it as long as the Fountain of Imperium still exists. So now that the fountain is connected to Constantine, and he just laced Constantine with poison, once Constantine dies, and the fountain's going to die as well. And then you slowly saw like John, pass out, and then he was dying, the fountain died, and then because Spooner is connected to the fountain as well, and then Spooner died, so we lost the fountain, we lost John Constantine, and then we lost Spooner. Now, from a legend standpoint, the legends were at Constantine's house trying to figure out how they can get to, how they can get to John, and they can stop him from, uncovering the Fountain of Imperium. So then Gary comes up with an idea, because Kayla, Mick's, baby mama, she has a time ship as well. So they took a picture of Mick with all of the babies, and I guess they tagged her on alien social media. She came back to the house, and then they were just like, listen, we need you to take us, to find out to where our ship is, because we need to stop John from uncovering the Fountain of Imperium. But they said, but also he stole the ship that has your babies on it, and we need to make sure the babies are safe too. So they find the ship, they go down to Texas. The legends run back on the Wave Rider to try to save the babies. And I believe it was Kayla, it was Gary, it was Mick, it was Sarah and Ava. Zari and Nate ended up going to the Mushroom Light show to go stop John from doing the whole Fountain of Imperium thing. And then when the legends got to the room that the baby eggs were in, Bishop had rigged it, and he said that he set the room up to where there was a bomb attached to the babies. So he said that once you open that door, there's going to be a countdown to this bomb, and you're going to have however the countdown clock is, you're going to have that amount of time to save the babies. He's like, if you don't save the babies, then the whole thing's going to explode. So all of them run in, they try to save the babies, they start putting the eggs in a basket or whatever, and one baby egg ended up dropping on the floor. And when one egg dropped on the floor, Mick tried to go back and save it, and when Mick picked up the baby egg, the bomb went off and it exploded, and I guess the baby egg got destroyed, and it also killed Mick, so now Mick's dead too. So now we lost Spooner, we lost Constantine, we lost the Fountain of Imperium, we lost Mick, we lost one of the baby eggs, and Bishop is in control. This whole thing now is making my prediction about going back to the finale part 3 even more stronger now because of everything that's happening. And then when Zari and Nate got to where John was, they saw, like John was like dying on the floor next to Astra. And then, Zari came over, she started crying, Astra started crying. But then John even said, he was like, oh, I can hear the Fountain of Imperium screaming in pain. He was like, I killed it. And then like the Fountain of Imperium snatched up Constantine and dragged him into the earth. So the rumors for next season is that Constantine is going to come back. Like the actor that plays Constantine, he's coming back as a different character. So maybe he comes back, maybe like the Fountain of Imperium absorbed Constantine's essence and absorbed John Constantine's soul. And maybe next season, Constantine comes back as the Fountain of Imperium. Like it looks like John Constantine and everything, but it's the Fountain of Imperium because the two of them like fused together. And I don't know what's going on with Spooner because we got to save Spooner. And I know I've been saying Mick was going to leave the show for the longest, but I don't think that's how Mick goes out, because they're not going to kill Mick Rory when he just had like 48 babies. Like they have to get some comical gold out of that before they get rid of his character. I mean, maybe him raising the babies is what gets him off the show, but I don't think Mick's dead either. And I'm going to say this again, because after Constantine got sucked in by the Fountain of Imperium, that's how the episode ended. But I'm going to say this again. I'm still holding on to my prediction. And also this has to do with Sarah too, because Sarah's an alien. Sarah's like half human, she's a half human, half alien clone. And when you see because I know like if you saw the because next week is the season finale. If you saw the coming attractions to the season finale, right when the Legends of Tomorrow logo pops up, you hear Ava's voice saying like we're co-captains for life no matter what or something like that. But you don't see her face when you just hear her voice. She says that to Sarah because what happens is, here's my prediction. Her and Sarah get married. They do get married, but then some cataclysmic, thing happens with Bishop. And then clone Sarah decides, because John's dead, because Spooner's dead, because Mick is dead, because everybody dead. Sarah's going to go back to last season's finale, and she's going to push herself out of the way before Bishop sucks her up into the alien spaceship from Jump Street. Because if Sarah never gets on that alien ship, none of this ever happens. And she's going to have a conversation with Ava, because Ava's going to be like, oh, but if you go back in time and stop yourself from going on the ship, then we'll never get married. We won't be married. And then that's when they do the whole thing. And then that's when she says co-captains for life, because Ava's eventually going to agree to the whole thing. So that is my prediction. That's my prediction for next week's episode. And Spooner, they're going to end up fighting, because like young Spooner ended up in the future anyway. So once Sarah saves herself, they're going to go get Spooner and bring her back. So that was it. And thank you for tuning in. Let me know your prediction, because again, one more episode left. We've come to the end of this season of Legends of Tomorrow. Share your thoughts below. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about each individual character. Is that it for me? Mick? Does Mick not come back? Do we never see Spooner again? How do we get rid of Bishop? And do we go back to the finale for the third time? Check me out on social media. Check me out on Instagram and hit me up on YouTube and share your questions, comments, and concerns so we can continue to talk about it as we roll forward. Hit the notification bell so you'll get notified when videos come up, because I got Titans coming, I got Stargirl, I got Supergirl, and I got Marvel's What If coming up. And I think like we're in September now, so I in another month or so, like the regular DC lineup is gonna be back. And I also heard in that Flash 5-episode crossover, Black Lightning's gonna be there, so I'm definitely down for that, along with Mia Smoke, because I miss Mia Smoke too. We need to do Green Arrow and the Canaries. So that was it, guys. Thank you for tuning in. And like I said, next week is the season finale, so we're about to close the chapter on this Legends of Tomorrow journey. I'm not sure if the season finale is the 100th episode. And if it is the 100th episode, I expect a callback from old Legends of the past to be at Sarah and Ava's wedding. That would be kind of cool, like I said, to have the whole gang there, but we'll see what happens. So like I said, thank you for tuning in as always. We'll be back next week to close the chapter of Legends of Tomorrow. And until the season finale, take care as always. And I'm out this